The night sky was burning with fire. Explosions shook the ground as human soldiers ran for cover. The air was filled with smoke, dust, and the cries of both humans and aliens. Among the chaos stood a young human soldier named Daniel. He was not the strongest, nor the most skilled, but his courage made him different. Daniel's squad had scattered when enemy fire rained down. Alone, he pushed forward, searching for survivors. His heart was racing, but his mind was focused. Every shadow looked like an enemy, and every sound made him grip his weapon tighter. As he moved through the battlefield, he saw something strange. Not far from him, lying near a broken wall, was an alien woman. Her armor was cracked, glowing with strange blue light. She was tall, her skin a pale silver, her hair flowing like strands of dark fire. Her chest rose and fell weakly, and she was surrounded by hostile alien creatures. Daniel froze. He had been told that these alien warriors were dangerous. They were enemies of Earth, and no human was to approach them. But in that moment, he did not see an enemy. He only saw someone in need, someone about to die. The creatures closed in, ready to finish her. Daniel acted without thinking. He raised his weapon and fired, his bullets cutting through the air. The enemies fell one by one, their bodies hitting the dirt with heavy thuds. His hands were shaking, but his aim stayed true. When the last one dropped, silence returned to the battlefield. Breathing hard, Daniel ran to the alien woman. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing like molten gold. For a moment, she stared at him as if she could not believe what she was seeing. A human soldier standing over her, offering life instead of death. "Stay still. I will help you," Daniel whispered. She tried to speak, but her voice was weak, her language foreign. Her hand trembled as she reached toward him. Daniel grabbed it, pulling her up with all his strength. Her fingers closed around his hand, and in that instant, something strange passed between them. It was not just the warmth of her touch. It was a shock, a pulse of energy that ran through both of them. Daniel felt it deep in his chest, as if their hearts had shared the same beat. The alien woman's eyes widened in shock. She whispered a word he did not understand, a word that carried weight and fear. "The law of union," she breathed in her tongue. Her voice shook as if she had spoken something forbidden. Daniel did not know what it meant. To him, he had only saved a life. But to her people, that single touch was something far greater. Suddenly, more alien figures appeared. They did not attack. Instead, they stopped and bowed their heads. Their glowing eyes looked at Daniel with strange respect. They called him something he could not understand, their voices deep and full of ritual. The woman held tightly onto his hand. Her strength was returning, and though she looked weak, her gaze was fierce. "You," she said in broken human words, "are mine now." Daniel stared at her, confused and lost. He had no idea that with one act of kindness, with one simple touch, he had changed both of their lives forever. The battlefield was no longer silent. Voices rose from the alien warriors, chanting. Daniel felt trapped, surrounded not by enemies, but by a law he could not escape. The woman looked at him, her expression a mix of fear and duty. She knew what this meant, even if he did not. To her people, the human had become her husband. To Daniel, he had only saved a stranger. But destiny had written a story neither of them expected. The night sky still burned, but something far greater than war had just begun. Daniel followed the alien woman as her people led them away from the battlefield. His mind was spinning. He had only tried to save someone, yet now he was surrounded by towering warriors who treated him with respect and fear at the same time. Their armor shone with strange blue light, their weapons glowing with alien energy, and still they did not point them at him. Instead, they bowed their heads whenever their glowing eyes met his. He felt like he had stepped into a dream, or maybe a nightmare. The woman leaned against him as they walked, her wounds healing slowly with the help of her people. She never let go of his hand, her grip strong even in her weakness. Daniel tried to pull free once, but she held tighter, her voice sharp even though she looked fragile. Do not break the bond, she whispered, her accent heavy, but her words clear. He frowned, not understanding. What bond? I only helped you. Her golden eyes fixed on him, filled with both gratitude and fear. No, human, you touched me. You saved me with your hand. You are bound by law. They reached a great alien ship, black and silver, like a mountain floating above the ground. As they entered, the halls were filled with warriors who knelt in silence as she passed. Daniel felt the weight of every stare, every chant, every bow. He wanted to speak, to shout that this was all a mistake, but the words died in his throat. The woman led him into a chamber, glowing crystals lighting the walls with soft blue fire. Alien symbols marked the floor, and Daniel realized this was not a place of war, but a place of judgment. An elder stepped forward, taller and older than the rest, his voice deep and heavy like thunder. He looked at Daniel and then at the woman, and then his voice echoed across the chamber. The law of union is fulfilled. He is her bonded. He is her husband by touch of life. Daniel's chest tightened. His mind screamed that this was madness. I don't understand, he said, his voice breaking. I only pulled her up. I didn't agree to this. The elder's eyes glowed brighter. The law is older than any word, older than any war. It cannot be broken. To reject the bond is to reject life itself. The alien woman stepped closer to him, her silver hair brushing his shoulder as she spoke. In our people, when one saves another with touch, it is more than rescue. It is union of spirit and body. Our ancestors wrote this in a law, so no life-saving bond could be dishonored. Her voice shook, as if even she feared the words, "You touched me in death's shadow. Daniel, now you are mine, and I am yours." Daniel's heart pounded. He felt trapped. Marriage was something he had never even thought about back on Earth, and now aliens were declaring him a husband. He shook his head. I didn't choose this. I just wanted to help. The elder raised a hand, silencing the chamber. Choice is a human word. Union is a law of the stars. The bond is sealed. It cannot be undone. The woman's eyes softened as she looked at him, not with anger, but with something deeper. I know this was not your way, she said quietly, but my people will kill you if you refuse. For them, dishonor is worse than death, and they will not forgive. Daniel's throat went dry. He realized then that he was no longer a soldier fighting for survival. He was caught inside an alien tradition that saw him not as an outsider, but as family. The chamber shook as warriors slammed their weapons against the floor in unison, chanting a word he did not know. The sound echoed through the halls, heavy and unbreakable. The elder placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder, his grip firm. You are chosen now. Human, you will live among us, protect her, and share her fate. You are not one, but two, bound by law. Daniel stared at the alien woman. Her golden eyes did not leave his, and for the first time he saw something there that was not fear, not duty, but hope. And in that moment, he knew his life would never return to what it once was. He had entered their world, and their law had already claimed him. Daniel had never felt so out of place. The alien ship was alive with sounds and movements that made his head spin. Everywhere he turned, tall warriors with silver skin bowed to him or stared at him with glowing eyes. To them, he was no longer just a human soldier. He was the bonded mate of one of their honored daughters. But to Daniel, it felt like a cage. The woman walked beside him, her hand never leaving his. Her name, he finally learned, was Soraya. Her voice carried authority, but her eyes often softened when she looked at him. Daniel tried again and again to explain. Where I come from, marriage is not like this. We choose, we agree. It is not forced. But Soraya only shook her head, her expression torn between sadness and duty. For my people, the bond is sacred. It is not forced. It is fate, she said. The elders gathered to speak with him. They surrounded Daniel in a circle, their robes glowing with threads of light. They asked him about Earth, about human traditions, about how his people lived. Daniel spoke simply, telling them about freedom, about choosing love, about building families by choice, not by law. The elders listened in silence, their glowing eyes shifting from him to Soraya. Finally, one of them spoke. Strange are the ways of humans, yet dangerous, for without law, how can love endure? Daniel clenched his fists, frustrated. He wanted to shout that they were wrong, but he saw the warriors standing around the chamber, their weapons glowing, their loyalty unshakable. If he insulted their traditions, it could mean death, not only for him, but perhaps for Soraya too. So he swallowed his anger and stayed quiet. Later, when they were alone in a chamber lit with soft blue crystals, Daniel spoke again to Soraya. I cannot stay like this. Your people think I am your husband, but I never chose it. Soraya's golden eyes locked onto his. You think I chose this? She whispered, her voice trembling. I was raised to follow the law, but my heart never asked for it either. For the first time, Daniel saw the weight she carried. She was not just proud and strong. She was also trapped by the same law that bound him. This realization softened something in him. Maybe she was not his enemy in this. Maybe she was his only ally. But outside their chamber, the culture clash only grew sharper. The alien warriors bowed to Daniel wherever he went, treating him as one of their leaders. Some called him protector, others chosen mate. Words he did not understand but felt heavy with meaning. When he refused to act like one of them, whispers began to rise. Some warriors muttered that he was dishonoring their law, that he was unworthy. The tension grew like a storm waiting to break. One night, as Daniel stood on a balcony overlooking the alien city below, Soraya joined him. The city glowed with towers of crystal and flowing rivers of light. So beautiful, and yet so alien. Daniel sighed. Your people will never understand me, and I will never understand them. Soraya looked at him with quiet strength. Then we must find a way in between, for if you refuse them, they will take your life, and if I refuse them, they will take mine. Daniel's heart pounded. He realized then the danger was not only about him being trapped in a strange marriage. It was about survival, about living under a culture that could destroy them both if they defied it. At that moment, a horn echoed through the ship, deep and loud. Warriors gathered in the great hall, their voices urgent. An elder announced that a prophecy had been whispered for generations. A prophecy of a stranger from the stars who would bond with one of their own and change the fate of both peoples. The room filled with chants, their eyes burning with belief. They looked at Daniel not as a mistake, not as a foreigner, but as the one their prophecy had spoken of. Daniel's skin went cold. He wanted to deny it, to say it was all wrong. But the fire in their voices told him that denying it could turn them into enemies. Soraya stood beside him, her hand trembling in his. Whispers spread quickly. Some saw him as hope, others saw him as danger. And in that clash of belief, Daniel realized the war outside was not as dangerous as the war within. Daniel's days among the aliens turned into weeks. The ship was now his prison and his shelter at the same time. Everywhere he walked, warriors bowed their heads and whispers followed him. Some called him the prophecy mate, while others spoke with doubt and anger. The weight of their eyes pressed against him like chains. Soraya stayed close, her hand almost always on his. At first, Daniel resisted, trying to pull away, but each time she tightened her grip and reminded him, if you break the bond in public, they will see it as betrayal, and betrayal means blood. Daniel hated the law, hated the idea of being tied without choice. But deep inside, he also understood that she was protecting him. Soraya began teaching him small things about their culture. She showed him the way her people saluted, the way they shared food, the way they prayed to the stars. Daniel listened but often shook his head. This is not me. I am human. I do not belong here. Soraya's golden eyes softened. You may not belong here, but here is where you must live now. Despite his resistance, he started noticing her strength in ways he could not ignore. When warriors doubted him, she defended him. When he stumbled with their customs, she stood by his side. Once, when a group of young warriors mocked him as weak, Soraya silenced them with a single command. Her voice cut through the hall like fire, and they bowed their heads in shame. Daniel felt a strange spark inside him, part gratitude, part respect. Still, the bond was heavy. At night, when he lay in the chamber of glowing crystals, he often thought about Earth, about freedom, about family, about the life he had lost. Sometimes he whispered to himself, "I didn't choose this." And each time, Soraya, lying quietly near him, would whisper back, "Nor did I." The tension between them was strange. They were bound yet distant, forced together yet unwilling to admit what was slowly growing between them. Daniel saw it in the way she watched him train. She saw it in the way he stood closer to her whenever others questioned her honor. It was not love yet, not trust yet, but something new, something reluctant and fragile. One day, an elder summoned Daniel to the Hall of Judgment. The elder's voice was heavy. "Human, your bond is questioned by some among us. They see you as weak, unworthy." Daniel's chest tightened, anger flaring inside him. "I never asked for this bond. How can I be unworthy of something I never chose?" he shouted. The hall fell silent, his voice echoing against the crystal walls. But the elder only stared at him, unblinking. Choice is not law. Strength proves worth. Soraya stepped forward before Daniel could say more. She stood tall, her voice filled with power. "Is my bonded by law and by life? His strength is different from ours, but it is real. I have seen it." Her words silenced the whispers, but Daniel knew the doubt had not vanished. It lingered like smoke, waiting for the wind of war to rise again. That night, Daniel confronted her, his voice sharp. "Why do you defend me when I don't even want this? Why risk your honor for me?" Soraya's eyes glowed in the dim light, her voice low. "Because if they take your honor, they take mine too." And because she paused, her words caught between duty and truth. "Because I believe in what I saw that night. You chose to save me when you could have let me die." Daniel had no reply, his heart heavy with confusion. He still hated the bond, yet something inside him softened each time she spoke with such honesty. He saw her pain, her strength, her unwillingness to bow even to her own people's harsh rules. And though he would never admit it aloud, part of him was beginning to admire her. The days moved forward, but the whispers in the alien halls grew louder. Some wanted him gone, others wanted him to rise as their leader. Daniel felt the storm building. He was caught between two worlds, his human desire for freedom and the alien law that refused to release him. And in the center of it all stood Soraya, the woman who was both his jailer and his shield. It was a reluctant bond, but slowly, against his will, it was becoming something more. The days of uneasy peace did not last long. Whispers of doubt around Daniel's bond with Soraya still filled the alien halls, but a greater danger was rising beyond their walls. Scouts rushed back to the great ship with reports that the enemy, the same hostile alien clan that had almost killed Soraya, was gathering again, stronger, faster, and hungry for war. The elders summoned their council. The warriors sharpened their glowing blades, and the air itself felt heavy with fear. Daniel stood in the chamber of crystals when the alarm rang. Soraya was already armored, her silver skin reflecting the blue light of her battle suit. She looked at him with fierce golden eyes. "They come for blood, and they will not stop until my people are ashes." Daniel clenched his fists, the old soldier inside him waking once more. He had not chosen this world, nor this bond, but he could not stand aside when war was at their door. The enemy ships descended like burning stars across the sky. Their engines roared, their weapons cut through the night with streaks of fire. Daniel watched as Soraya's people rushed into formation, their discipline sharp and terrifying. Yet he saw their weakness too. Their warriors fought with honor, always face to face, never hiding, never ambushing. Daniel knew such pride could be turned into a trap. He grabbed Soraya's arm before she joined the front line. Listen to me. Your people fight with strength, but no tactics. The enemy will use this. They will bleed you dry." Soraya frowned. "We do not hide. We do not strike from the shadows." Daniel's voice hardened. "On Earth, we survive by any means. If you fight only with honor, you die with honor. Is that what you want?" For a moment, Soraya's pride clashed with her fear, but finally she nodded. Together, they spoke to the elders, and though many grumbled, Daniel's words were sharp and undeniable. When the enemy landed, the battlefield became a storm of fire. Alien screams shook the sky. Glowing blades clashed against dark steel, and Daniel led a small group into the shadows. He used human tactics: ambush, surprise, breaking the enemy's lines from the side. At first, the warriors hesitated, but when they saw the enemy falling faster, they followed his lead. Soraya fought beside him, her every strike powerful, her every movement like fire. Daniel covered her back, pulling enemies down with quick human tricks, throwing dust, striking weak spots. Using everything he knew, the alien warriors began to cheer his name, shouting words he did not understand but felt in his chest. In that chaos, Daniel felt something shift. For the first time, he was not just the outsider, not just the forced husband. He was a warrior among them, and they saw him as one of their own. The enemy roared louder, sending their strongest fighters forward, huge armored beasts that towered above the battlefield. Daniel's heart pounded, but Soraya only smiled, her golden eyes blazing. "Now you see why we never bow," she whispered before charging into the fray. Daniel followed, their bond pulling them in a perfect rhythm. She struck with power, he struck with cunning. Together they brought down warriors twice their size. But the battle was far from over. The enemy retreated only to regroup, their ships still burning above. The elders declared the fight a victory, but Daniel could see the truth. It was only the beginning. War was coming again, and stronger than before. That night, in the quiet after the chaos, Soraya stood beside him, her armor scarred, her face tired but proud. "You fought like one of us," she said softly, "and they will remember it." Daniel looked at her, breathing heavy, his voice low. "I didn't do it for them. I did it for you." Her eyes widened, a flicker of warmth breaking through the walls of duty and law. For the first time since their bond, silence between them did not feel like a prison, but like something fragile and real. Still, Daniel knew the danger was far from gone. The enemy would return, and when they did, his bond with Soraya would be tested in fire and blood. And in his heart, though he did not want to admit it, he was no longer fighting only to survive. He was fighting because she mattered. The enemy attack had shaken the alien city. Though Soraya's people had fought bravely and Daniel's tactics had saved many lives, the cost was high. The halls of the great ship were filled with the wounded, and the voices of mourning echoed through the glowing corridors. For the first time, Daniel felt their grief as his own. He was not just an outsider watching from the shadows. He was bound to them, tied by blood, by battle, and by Soraya. Yet in the quiet that followed, a message arrived from Earth. Human ships had reached the edge of alien territory, searching for survivors, searching for him. When Daniel heard the transmission, his heart twisted. For months he had dreamed of hearing human voices again, of returning to the soil of his home world. Now that the chance was before him, it felt less like freedom and more like a blade cutting through his chest. The elders summoned him, their voices heavy with ritual. "Human, your people call you back, but the bond holds you here. You must choose." Daniel's breath caught. He looked at Soraya, standing tall beside him. Her golden eyes held no command, no demand, only silence. She would not beg. She would not chain him. Her honor forced her to let him decide. At night, he sat alone, staring out of the crystal windows at the alien stars. He thought of Earth, of his mother's smile, of the smell of rain, of the sound of music and laughter. Then he thought of Soraya, her fierce strength, the way she had defended him, the way her hand never let go of his, the way her eyes softened when no one was watching. He was torn between two worlds, two lives, two hearts. The next day, he walked through the alien city. Every warrior bowed as he passed. Every elder whispered about the prophecy. Some begged him to stay. Others muttered that a human could never be their savior. Daniel's chest tightened with every step. He did not want to be their symbol, their prophecy, or their prisoner. Yet he also did not want to see Soraya left alone, fighting battles without him. When he returned to their chamber, Soraya was waiting. Her armor was set aside, her silver skin glowing faintly under the crystal light. "You have heard their words," she said softly, "and I will not stop you if you choose to leave." Daniel's voice cracked. "If I leave, what happens to you?" She lowered her gaze. "The bond will break, and with it my honor. They will cast me out. Some may even call for my death, but I would rather face that than hold you against your will." Daniel's heart twisted in pain. He saw her standing proud and strong, willing to sacrifice everything for his freedom. And in that moment, he realized that the bond, which had begun as a prison, had become something deeper. It was no longer just law. It was trust, sacrifice, and something dangerously close to love. The choice was tearing him apart. To leave meant safety, freedom, and a life he had lost. To stay meant danger, war, and a world that might never accept him. But when he looked at Soraya, he saw not chains, but a partner who had stood with him in every fire. He whispered to himself, "Home is not always a place. Sometimes it is a person." The horns of war echoed again in the distance. The enemy was returning, stronger than before. Daniel knew that time was running out. He would have to choose not only his path, but also where he would fight his final battle. And in his heart, the answer was beginning to burn brighter than the stars. The horns of war thundered across the alien city. Enemy ships tore through the skies like burning meteors, their weapons raining fire on the crystal towers. The ground shook with every blast, and panic filled the glowing streets. Daniel stood at the balcony of the great hall, his fists clenched, his heart heavy with the choice he had delayed too long. Behind him, Soraya stood in her armor, tall and fierce, her golden eyes blazing with fire. She turned to him and said quietly, "This is the end, Daniel. If you wish to go to your people, go now. They wait for you in the skies." Her voice was strong, but Daniel heard the tremor beneath it, the pain she tried to hide. He looked at her, remembering every moment since the night he saved her, her strength, her loyalty, her defiance, and her kindness. He realized then that leaving would not save him, it would only break him. Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I had a home once, far from here, but now I see the truth. My home is where you are." Soraya's eyes widened, a single breath escaping her lips. The warriors in the hall turned, their glowing eyes fixed on him, waiting. Daniel raised his weapon and shouted, "I stay, not because of your law, but because I choose it. I fight for her, and for all of you." The hall erupted with thunderous chants, the alien warriors slamming their weapons against the floor. For the first time, Daniel felt no weight of chains, no cage of law. The bond was no longer forced. It was his decision, his vow. The battle began with fury. The enemy charged through the gates, their beasts roaring, their weapons blazing. Soraya and Daniel fought side by side, their movements bound together like two halves of the same fire. She struck with the strength of her people, her blade glowing like a star. He struck with human cunning, every step unpredictable, every move catching the enemy off guard. Together, they became unstoppable. The enemy's leader, a towering beast clad in black steel, marched forward. His voice shook the battlefield. "The human does not belong. The bond is a lie." Daniel stepped out to face him, his heart pounding. "I belong because I choose to," he shouted, "and that choice is stronger than your hatred." The duel was brutal, the leader's strength crushing, every strike heavy as thunder. But Daniel refused to fall. Soraya fought at his side, and together they turned weakness into victory. In the final moment, Daniel saw the opening. He struck with all his strength while Soraya's blade cut through the beast's armor. The leader fell, and with him the enemy army broke into chaos, retreating back to the skies. The battlefield fell silent. Smoke rose, the wounded cried, but the city still stood. The warriors gathered, bowing before Daniel and Sariah, their chants echoing like a storm of fire and light. The elder's voice rang out. The prophecy is fulfilled, not by law, but by choice, not by fate, but by love. Sariah turned to Daniel, her golden eyes shining with something more than duty. You could have left, but you stayed, she whispered. Why? Daniel's voice was soft, but firm, because what began as law became something real, and I will not walk away from it. Her hand found his, their bond glowing brighter than ever. Not a prison, not a chain, but a true union. As the alien sun rose over the broken city, Daniel and Sariah stood hand in hand. War had brought them together, law had bound them, but choice had made them one. And in that moment, a human and an alien, born from different worlds, became a symbol of hope for both.